Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, this is Wi-Fi Tech Lab, and today we will dive in one of the most important topic in network administration. This is security, of course. When we talk about security in the IT world, we are talking about protecting digital assets, everything from personal data to corporate infrastructure, from unauthorized access, damage, and also theft. Security is not just a single tool or setting. It's a combination of layers, systems, and best practices that work together to keep your environment safe. Right, so basically, let's take a quick look at the main type of security every organization should be aware of. If you know, on this video, we'll focus on web filtering, or we will be configuring protect on our Sophos Firewall. So this is the field that we'll focus on. Okay. So network security protects the infrastructure by securing both hardware and software technologies, include firewall, intrusion detection systems, and VPNs. So this is intrusion protection system that we're talking about. This is the field where we can actually configure all of those in here. This is the application that we talk about. This is the site-to-site VPN. So endpoint security focus on securing end user device like desktops, laptop and smartphone, antivirus, EDR or endpoint detection response and response. Let's go to something called WASO. This is a CM tool. Let's just do this. cm.coifitech.co.za. This is one of the best tools that I use for endpoint security. Okay, it's called WASO. If you haven't heard about it, you can just go download the documentation and follow the steps on how to configure and run this on Docker container or on any Linux system. Now, what about application security? Application security ensures that applications are free of vulnerabilities. We can configure that over here as well. This includes securing coding, regulate updates, and web application firewalls, which is web application firewalls. So we also have something called cloud security. As more services move to the cloud, we all know securing platforms like Amazon's or Azure or Google Cloud has become essential, using tools like identity and access management (IAM) or encryption. Okay, so data security protects data at rest and in transit, and also we can say it protects the data that is in use. Our techniques includes encryption, tokenization, and proper access control. So here we'll be talking about something called web or content security. Prevents users from accessing malicious or inappropriate content online. This is where we do the content filtering in this Sophos Firewall that we will be using here. If you don't know, I'm using a visual appliance which is hosted on my VM. So this is where we will actually start by doing all of those configurations. Okay, so this is our control center that we have on this application or this VM. It shows us a variety of features that we can actually capture on this device. Traffic insight, we can see allowed web categories, we can see user and device insights, we can see active threat response, we can see performance and the interfaces that we have. By clicking in here, you can see that we have that gateway that we're using. If I go back, okay, don't worry about the speed for now. If we go back to the performance, we can also see how the system performs, and you can also click and see how the VPNs and all of those services performs. But our main focus again today on this video, we will be configuring something called web filtering. Okay, so first thing first that you should know, we actually have to define our rules and policy based on the hosts and services that we have in here. If you click here, you must see that we have predefined number of system hosts that we have. As you can see, these are all IP hosts. You can tell by that 255.255.255.255. This is the subnet mask that points to a single host IP. Okay, and then we have IP host group, where we can actually create IP host, multiple IP hosts here, and then create a group and associate all of those IP hosts that we created as a single group, so that when we apply the policy we can just apply in a single group. As well as we can also create those MAC address policy here. Okay, we can list the MAC address where we actually want to apply the policy to that specific name, or to that specific host which uses or utilizes MAC addresses. Okay, we can also specify the fully qualified domain name host here. There's an option to actually customize or add. These are already here, these are predefined, as you can see. We can also associate the group. We can create a group and associate all of those fully qualified domain name on under host, and then associate them as part of the group that we created. We can create our rules and policies based on the countries. As you can see, if I want to apply a policy that only allows traffic on African countries or on a specific country, I can always come in here and customize it the way we want. And then also the services and the services groups. Okay, so I'm just gonna show you that I'm currently on this. I'm just gonna minimize this. I'm currently on this computer right now. Just gonna do a command to show what IP address that I'm using. As you can see, this is the tool which actually helps us to get the information about the IP address, DHCP, and the DNS. Okay, so if I want to see the IP address or the host or the IP host of this machine that I'm using, this is the IP address, which is 192.168.88.47. So if I come here and open another instance or another Chrome, so let's go to this one and add another tab in here. If I can search anything, maybe let's check this. This is the content that you want to make sure that you're filtering. This is part of the sites that you don't want to allow in your network. So as you can see, everything that include this name or this content, I can access it right now. But what I'm willing to do is, I'm just making an example. What I'm willing to do is, I want to ensure that on this specific host, I want to actually restrict the access of that specific site. Okay, this is a web filtering. We're gonna do this as based on IP host, and also we will do it based on what, on IP host group. Okay, let's start by creating that IP host where we would like to apply our rules and policies. So in this case, I'm just gonna specify that this is just the lab 001. I'm just using any name, and then I can just say this is the name of the host, and then here we can specify which IPv4 protocol that we're willing to use. In this case, let's use IPv4. Ever since all of my devices in the network, they are utilizing IPv4 addressing. So we can also choose if we want to add this host as an IP or a single IP, or we can apply this as a network or an IP range which starts on a certain number of IPs towards the certain number of the IPs. And then we can also select the list of IP addresses that we want to include as part of um, this IP host. So we can say this name representing all of the list. If I can give it, maybe let's say here I want to say 192.168.88. maybe 2, and then I specify the other list. So all of these IP addresses that I'm listing here, they will have the same they will apply the same policy, because this is an list of IP addresses. This is an IP list. However, you can do the same thing using the IP host group. Okay, so we're gonna focus on this for now, because I'm just gonna do the test on a single IP address, which is 192.168.88.47 that we saw in there. Okay, this is the IP address that I'm currently talking about, and then I'm just gonna save this. Alright, so if I scroll down just into the end, I'll be able to see that this is the IP host that is newly added here. As you can see, this is the IP address of the single host 192.168.8.8.47 with its subnet mask of /32, okay, which is pointing directly to the host. And then I can also come here if I want to and create a group, and then maybe I can say this is a LAN group LAN, and then I'm just making an example. This is just a group of all hosts in my network. I'm just making an example, and then I can actually come here and search for that specific host that I created on the other hand, and then I can just tick it here and then click apply. So now what I will have is I will have this group associated with IP hosts that are listed on the first time, okay, when I was creating this IP host. Right, so I can add as many IP hosts on this group as I want to. Now let's move on to something called, let's go to rules and policies. First thing that we have to check here, as you can see, we have these firewall rules based on the protocol version 4 and version 6. So under version 4 we can see 6 rules that are put in place by default here. So we have the first one, which is a traffic to internal zone. If you look on the right hand side, there is a description. It says to LAN, Wi-Fi, VPN, DMZ. Firewall rule with the destination zone is LAN, Wi-Fi, VPN, and DMZ would be added to this group on the first match basis if users select automatically grouping option. We're gonna see that how the automatical grouping option can be selected. Let's go to the second one. As you can see, we have traffic to WAN. This is actually if we have a LAN traffic that actually goes to the WAN. Right, so it's an outbound traffic to the WAN. Firewall rules with the destination zone as a WAN would be added to this group on the first match basis if a user select automatically group option. Right, and that one is a traffic to a demilitarized zone. So as 4th, as 5th to 6th, we have those default rules. Right, so let's go to IPv6. On IPv6 we have all dropped, so everything is dropped in here because we're not using IPv6 scheme here. So we'll focus on IPv4 for this demonstration. In this case, what we're willing to do, as we said, we're willing to actually filter web traffic or web content according to what we actually prefers. It is always easier to fix, to actually customize or to filter based on what we want to allow. We can actually deny everything and then only allow those sets of web links or URLs that we actually want to permit on our network. However, because there are some other subdomains that we may want to allow, or we can actually might forget, therefore let's just try to use the custom filter rule that will only filter that specific set or that specific web content. So in this case, let's try to act as if we are creating a firewall rule. Or maybe before we go actually to create the firewall rule, let's go to see what types of web content that we're willing to filter. In this case, as you can see, we have this set of default policies. We have these users. It could be anybody, but let's try to unselect this so that we can see it could be anybody, clientless, open group, a guest group, known users, open group. All right, I'm just gonna put it back to anybody. So we have this set of activities that applies to each and every policy that you see in here. We have these activities blocked URL for default. So these activities, they are actually here. These are customizable activities that you can also add on your own. So as you can see, we have a bandwidth heavy browsing, download freeware or shareware, live audio, live videos, peer-to-peer, and torrent. All of those. We have community, education, religion. These are all activities. We have criminal activities, we have culture, entertainment, we have drug and control, we have finance and investing, and we have gaming and gambling. We have all of these information and communication, nudity and adulting content that we may be willing to actually use as our activity to block. Okay, we can block or permit. All right, so let's try to use maybe something to do with let's see which activity we can actually use here. Let's see which one is it. Gaming and gambling. Okay, we're just gonna try to use this or use this activity as something to define on our policy to block on certain number of hosts that we're gonna actually use in here. So in this case, let's do this. I'm just gonna go back to policies. Or you can also categorize all of the preferences here that you want to associate, or all of those user activities. You can add your own category here, and then as you can see, we have all web traffic here. Right, so let's come in here to policies, and you can also add an exception here. So let's go to policies. On the policies, what we're willing to do, we're willing to create a policy, and let's give it a name, gambling not for children. Gamblers know when to stop or to never start. Okay, so this is just an example of how we're gonna be creating this policy here, and let's just come in here, and what we're willing to do here, we are actually willing to block this HTTP. Right, and let's just come in here and switch this one on. This is actually prevent potential inappropriate images and videos. So let's just save this for now. These are all other advanced settings that you can actually enable here and prevent download of files based on the size limit. So I don't want to go back to rules and policies for now. I still want to check that policy that I've created. So if I come here As you can see, we have all web traffic have been allowed in here. We want to change this to actually select that gaming blah blah blah, the activity. Let's see if it's not showing. Oh, there it's showing. It's gaming and gambling. Right, this is the activity that we're trying to control from anybody. We actually want to block this certain traffic, and then we're gonna allow the rest of HTTP requests, and we actually want to set the time all the time. Let's just leave everything as default in here, and then we just want to activate this, and we want to apply the changes. Okay, so if I go back to my firewall rule, I will have to create a rule, or a firewall rule, that will allow the rest of the traffic from LAN to WAN to actually go to any other HTTP request. However, these certain requests of gaming and gambling will be blocked. So, but in this case, remember, I want to use this host, IP host, to actually test these policies. In this case, I'm just going to minimize this and then go back to here. And remember, on our host section, let's go back and check what IP addresses or what host we have that we can use. We're expecting to see a lab 001. This is the one that I'm currently talking about. And here we also have a laptop that I'm currently using, and we have this two. So we have only these two that we actually customized. Or we have this two. This is actually a network based. If you see, this is an ID, this is a class C network ID, so which means we're gonna apply the policy to every, or to this subnet, let me just say, on this /24. So we're gonna apply the policy to entire network. Okay, but in this case, let's start by testing only to one IP, or onto one host, which is lab-001, right, which utilizes this IP 47. And again, if I show you, this is the device that we're currently talking about. Currently, if I go to Chrome here and search, I'm just gonna look for maybe Hollywood Bet, and go to that site. I can actually be able to log in and sign in here to this site. I can actually request to go to visit to this site right on the network, and I can download the page and the whole content of this site, right, in which we want to restrict. We don't want to visit any of all of these Betway sites and all of those gambling sites and so on. Okay, we are not expecting to see all of them. Superbet, circle shop. Okay, so yeah, let's just dive in and check. So I'm just gonna minimize this and go back to rules and policies. On our rule that we trying to define, remember, these are all default rules that we have. So we want to add our own, which is a new firewall rule. And on this firewall, we want to accept everything except whatever that we're gonna filter here, right? We don't want to block actually entire web traffic. We want to block security feature that is enabled under protect, under web specifically. All right, so let's start by coming here. So before we even forget, we want to select that policy that we created, which is gaming not for children. All right, so we want to scan for HTTP and decrypt HTTPS. We want to use the 0-day protection. We want to scan the file transfer protocol for malware, and Also, let's see if we can, okay, let's leave the setting as they are for now because we're dealing with web policing. And then let's go back to check what is going on here. So here we're creating a firewall rule to block gambling. Okay, this is the rule to block gambling sites as it is not for under age, restricted okay, so restricted under 18. So basically what we are saying here, we are defining a firewall rule, and then we want to make this rule to be on top, and we want to accept the rest of the traffic except for the traffic that is matching the exactly policy here. So we want to select the source zone, which is our LAN, and we want to select the destination service, which is going to the internet, and we want to specify the source network and the device. This is where actually we have to specify those hosts that we have defined previously. So we have to search lab 001. Okay, this is just a single host because we are testing this on a single host, so we're just gonna select this lab-001. Right, now let's move on to destination. We can leave this as any, we can leave the service as any as well, and then let's just apply our configuration, and let's go and do the testing and see actually if all of those web content is actually blocked. Okay, so let's go to that host, or maybe before we go to this host, let's verify something on this policy here. If you check, we have configured this firewall rule in such a way that it must be on top. However, if you check here, we can see that because this is a policy, or this is a firewall rule which is a traffic to WAN, so it went as the sub rule of this rule, so we have to remove it from here. So how to remove it? We must go to edit, and then we have to remove it as part of that group, and then we're gonna click save. If you notice, both of those rules are the rule which is traffic to WAN and this customized rule. It was capturing traffic. Both of those rules were actually capturing traffic, but now if you pay attention, all of the traffic is captured based on this firewall rule that is created. Alright, that is customized. So let's go now and do our testing on this device. So we want to ensure that if we go to this site, if we type in any of the betting or gambling, we don't actually willing to see all of those content, but let's do this. Let's go to Hollywood again, Hollywood bet. It will go in if this site is actually not part of if it is not part of that activities listed there. Okay, let's go and test another one. Maybe let's test the super bets. Okay, let's give it some time. Okay, I can see we can still be able to actually visit these sites. Reason being is that it's because it's not, maybe these sites they are not part of they are not part of those activities that we actually created there. But let's just refresh and see if, okay, here we are. Let's see. As you can see, this site is actually currently blocked by Sophos. Stop this web. Okay, it says stop, this website is actually blocked. Alright, the administrator of the network has restricted the access to this site. But if you pay attention, or if you notice, if I can come here and go and visit the same site, which is super bets, I will be able to visit the site from this PC. Why is that? It is because we have defined our policy in such a way that it will actually focus on one specific host but not on the entire network. Alright, so I'm just gonna use a group now. Remember, there was an option where you can actually list, or you can create a group and associate the IP host as part of that group and then apply the policy as part of the group. So we're just gonna do that so that this laptop and lab-001 will be part of the group that we create, and we're gonna attach the same policy on that specific group so that this laptop also will apply with the same policy, which restrict the content, or which filter the web content based on gambling and gaming. Alright, now let's go to here again. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna go back to host. Let's go to host and services, and then just gonna try to refresh this. I have to log in again. Okay, so we are back again. Let's just go and navigate to the host and services. Alright, so what we're gonna do now, we're just trying to define an IP host group. We can actually utilize this one, which is a group LAN. So under group LAN, I'm just gonna modify it slightly. Oh, it's actually okay, as you can see, it is actually associated with these two hosts, which is a lab 001 and the laptop. Alright, so I'm just gonna save this. So basically, what is a laptop IP address? If you go to here, the laptop IP address is actually 192.168.88.45. So how do we check that? By typing cmd and IP config. You will notice that this is the IP address of this host machine. So my laptop, where I'm actually trying to access this site, I can be able to do it without no firewalls blocking me, or the web filtering blocking me. I can actually access any site that I want at the moment, because there is no rule that is blocking me. Alright, now what we're willing to do is we want to go back to rules and policies to actually associate the firewall rule that we created, which is this one. On this firewall rule now, we're willing to remove this source network device, and we're willing to actually add the group. It's called group. I think it's group LAN. This is group LAN. Now as soon as I save this or apply this, the policy now will apply new changes to both of these devices. I'm just gonna try or keep refreshing until this is actually applied. Let me just give it some time. As you can see, it is actually taking time to download the page, which means there is something coming. Let's try again and see. Okay, let me just do this super bets, and then let me try to enter to it. Just give it some time. I know sometimes it takes longer. Okay, I can still be able to go to super bets. Okay, let me go to Hollywood. Okay, as you can see, when I'm trying to access to Hollywood, I cannot be able to, because it is also part of the betting site. Let's go to Betway as well. I'm just gonna try to act as if I'm signing. As you can see, I cannot be able to actually go to any of these sites. Alright, so cat 24, let's go to soccer shop. Okay, let's go back to Superbet. Let's go to Hollywood. Okay, I'm actually blocked. Alright, so I'm actually blocked on all of these sites, as you can see. So let's go now to try and act as if I'm just gonna actually try to remove this laptop as part of the group, so that we actually not gonna lock ourselves out. I just want to show you the difference between using the accept on firewall rule and actually allow the traffic and then filter a specific application or specific web content. Alright, now what happens if we just do this? Let's try to log back in. Okay, as you can see, we have blocked application categories here, and then we have these 13 blocks unclassified, blah blah blah. So let's go to host and services. So under host and services, we're willing to actually go to this group, and then we're willing to remove our laptop as part of the group in this case, which means now if I go to refresh on here, I should be able to access the internet. Sorry, I mean we can actually be able to log into this site, which is a Hollywood bet, because now I've actually removed my PC or my laptop as part of what, as part of that group, right? But the reason why I'm actually removing this is because I want to actually go to rules and policies, and then I'm just gonna be blocking everything. So let's go to this host again. This one actually, if you try to go to Google, you can be able to go to Google. However, let's see what's gonna happen if I set this traffic to block everything entirely, to drop. So let's say I selected drop over here. If you pay attention, you will see that the web filtering option here is actually gone. Why is it so? What's the use of having the rule or the sub rule to block certain feature, whereas the parent rule is actually blocking everything? So that's why the web is actually disappeared, because now we have said we don't want to allow anything at all. So we're dropping every packet that is destined to a WAN from LAN, right, on the specific host. Right, as you can see, we have that blocking. All right, now what we're gonna do is we just gonna go to here and try to access the internet. Let's try to access anything. Let's click on this site. As you can see, I cannot be able to click on any of these sites. I cannot go to Google, I cannot go to anywhere. Alright, I can't go to a speed test, I can't do nothing, because every packet that is initiated from this specific host is actually blocked. There's nothing I can do. Okay, I can't do nothing at all. Alright, Sophos is blocking everything. Now, what about my laptop? I'm just gonna try to minimize this. What about my laptop over here? This laptop, because it's not part of the group, it can be able to go anywhere. So if I go to, sorry, I'm just gonna cut this video because my public IP is exposed there, so I'm just gonna cut the video short. Yeah, so we can go anywhere and search everything on this laptop specifically, but if we go to this host here, this host can never be able to search anything. Okay, the reason why it cannot be able to is because of this drop that we have enabled in here. This will drop everything that's come from LAN, specifically to WAN, specifically for this group. Alright, so we have to actually accept it. As we accept, we can see that there are security features that are enabled, including the security heartbeat as well. So now if we go back there, we can actually be able to say, okay, now we're willing to visit Hollywood, and then there we are, we can be able to visit Hollywood, and then we can be able to actually do the speed test as well. Okay, so I hope this video is actually so informative based on web filtering. So as we move along, actually, because this is the first video about Sophos, we will go back and see how we actually get to download and configure this appliance. Alright, so we'll start and then actually utilize all of these protect features, such as intrusion prevention system. This is sync flooding, and then we can also go to application, so where we can actually block, filter, avoidance application to actually drop the traffic from application that tunnels other apps. Alright, we can actually block general unwanted apps. If we go here, or if we go to the application list, that's where we can actually get the list of all the applications that we can be able to block. Right, as you can see, we have streaming media, we have generative AI, we have social networking, we have proxy tunnels, we have all of these application list that we can actually utilize. So we also have some features here for wireless traffic. We also have web filtering here, so we can, sorry, email filtering, so we can also check the web servers here. And we have active response here, active thread response here. This is MDR thread feeds, and we can actually configure remote access VPNs, we can configure site-to-site VPNs. We will do a lot, including routing based on those routing protocol, SD-WAN solution. We have static routes, default routes, we have BGP border gateway routing protocol, open shortest path first, version 2 and version 3, and check the difference between the authentication types that fall under those OSPF. So we have actually observed how this firewall rule actually block any traffic that originate from a specific host that was specified. In this case, it was lab-001, whenever they try to reach out to those gambling or gaming sites. What if we want to turn things around? Let's say this firewall is actually fitful for purpose of the infrastructure that deals with gambling. Let's say now we want to block everything else except the gambling. Every links that are associated with gambling, they can be actually opened. Well, we were not gonna do so much changes. As you can see, all the traffic is captured on this rule type 3, as you can see, which is the blocking gaming. if our rule that we customized, that we created. We're not gonna change everything here. All we have to do is, because we don't want to block the entire traffic, we don't want to block entirely traffic. However, we want to block certain the majority of the traffic. However, we want to permit the gambling or the gaming sites. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna navigate to web under protect. So we need to find that policy that we have created. In this case, we have said this is the policy that we created. If you click on the plus sign, you will see that currently we have this action which actually block the site. However, it permits everything else. Alright, now what if we have to block this thing and actually allow this site? So basically we blocking every traffic while we allowing this gambling site. So everything that's under this gaming and gambling will be allowed. So if we apply these changes and go back to this host over here, as you can see, we can actually be able to refresh here and play around with these sites. Go to cricket, go to tennis. We can do everything here, including logging. However, what if I wanted to access something else, like a speed test, for instance? Let's see if I'm gonna be able to. Well, guess what? I'm not gonna be able to search anything, including Google itself. I can't search anything, including network. But see what happens if I try to access maybe Hollywood Bet. I'll be able to actually access that specific gambling site. Let's see what will happen if I try to access Bedway as well. Let's go to Bedway home. As you can see, this content is actually allowed, so I can actually manage to go to any of these sites, www.soccershop.co.za. let's see if that site is actually active. Okay, this is actually a different site. So if we go to Superbet again, I can be able to go to Superbet because it's one of the sites that's related to gambling. Now let's search anything else again. Let's go to Zoho. I won't be able to reach out to Zoho. It's gonna tell me straight that this is actually being blocked by the firewall rule. Okay, so basically that rule actually blocks everything except those specific activities that are allowed in there. Okay, so this is actually how to block the traffic while allowing these activities that are part of games and gambling. Alright, so let's just go to control center one more and see what we have there as our blocked application. Okay, we still have the same readings. Okay, so I hope this video was so informative to you. Let's meet again on an upcoming video.